You ever notice how some people look completely fine on the outside, but something about them feels tired? Not physically tired, soul tired. They wake up, go to work, answer texts, laugh at the right moments, pay bills, scroll their phone at night, and repeat the same cycle over and over again like a machine pretending to be a human being. And nobody notices because nothing is technically wrong. That's the terrifying part. Quiet desperation doesn't always look like a breakdown. Sometimes it looks like functioning perfectly while slowly dying inside. Henry David Thoreau once wrote that most men live lives of quiet desperation, and the older I get, the more disturbing that sentence becomes. Because desperation is easy to recognize when it's loud. When someone's screaming, spiraling, crashing out, everybody sees it. But quiet desperation? That hides behind routines, behind careers, behind relationships, behind smiling photos and I'm good responses. It's the kind of suffering that learns how to behave, and I think a lot of people fall into it without even realizing it. It starts with tiny compromises, tiny betrayals of yourself. I'll chase my dream later. I'll settle for this job for now. I'll stay in this relationship because at least it's familiar. And at first it feels temporary. But temporary has a way of becoming permanent when fear gets comfortable. Years pass. Your responsibilities grow roots around you. And one day you wake up realizing you built an entire life around survival, but forgot to include yourself in it. That's why some people feel empty even after getting everything they thought they wanted. Because achievement without alignment creates exhaustion. You can win the game and still hate waking up in the morning. You can make money and still feel spiritually bankrupt. You can be surrounded by people and still feel emotionally isolated. Quiet desperation is the gap between the life you're living and the life your soul knows you were meant for. And social media makes it worse. Now everybody performs happiness like it's a full-time job. People don't even ask, am I fulfilled anymore? They ask, do I look fulfilled? Those are two completely different questions. One is about truth, the other is about optics. So people curate identities instead of building lives. They become brands before they become human beings. And after a while, they don't even know who they are without an audience watching. The scary thing about quiet desperation is that it numbs you slowly. You stop asking yourself difficult questions because the answers might require courage. You stop imagining different possibilities because routine feels safer than uncertainty. You become efficient at existing but disconnected from living. And eventually you forget what excitement even feels like. Not pleasure, not distraction. Real excitement. The kind that makes you feel awake. The kind that reminds you there's still fire in you somewhere. And maybe that's why so many people are constantly overstimulated now. Constant music, constant scrolling, constant noise. Because silence forces confrontation. Silence asks questions entertainment can temporarily drown out. Questions like, is this really the life I want? When did I stop being curious? Why do I feel lonely even around people? What part of myself did I abandon just to fit into this version of adulthood? The truth is, a lot of people aren't depressed because life is impossible. They're depressed because they've disconnected from meaning. Human beings can survive pain. We've always survived pain. But meaninglessness? Meaninglessness empties people out. It turns days into repetitions instead of experiences. That's why some of the most exhausted people aren't the ones working the hardest. They're the ones living without emotional connection to what they do. And I'm not saying everybody needs to quit their job tomorrow and disappear into the mountains to find themselves. Sometimes the change starts smaller than that. Sometimes it starts with honesty, honest conversations, honest reflection, honest admissions like, I'm not happy, or I've been pretending for years. That kind of honesty is terrifying because once you see the truth clearly, you can't unsee it anymore. But maybe that discomfort is necessary. Maybe dissatisfaction isn't always a flaw. Maybe sometimes it's a signal. A warning light on the dashboard of your spirit telling you that you've been living too far away from yourself for too long. Because people think the greatest tragedy is failure. I don't think so. I think the greatest tragedy is becoming emotionally absent from your own life. Waking up one day realizing you spent decades being responsible, but never truly alive. Safe, but never fulfilled. Admired, but never understood. That's quiet desperation. It doesn't destroy you all at once. It erodes you gradually, quietly, politely. And maybe the solution isn't to become louder. Maybe it's to become more real. To stop performing strength every second of your life. To stop treating your deeper desires like inconveniences. To stop abandoning yourself just because the world rewards conformity more than authenticity, because at the end of the day, people can survive chaos. People can survive heartbreak. People can survive failure. But surviving a life that never felt like yours in the first place, that leaves a different kind of wound. And I think deep down, most people already know exactly what I mean.